Joining us now is Delegate Gregory Habeeb. He is a Republican, and he is from the 8th District, representing Roanoke and Salem. Delegate Habeeb, great to have you with us today.
John, thanks for having me, and we're excited to have you on the air in the Roanoke Valley.
There you go.
Well,
and
we're fired up.
Delegate, are you a big fan of your Salem Red Sox down there?
We are. I actually grew up a Mets fan. I remember '86 well when we beat the Red Sox. So I have a hard time rooting for the Red Sox in principle, but I've come around, and my kids and I love going to the games.
Excellent. Beautiful facility down there.
It is.
Well, now you would bring up 1986. I'm a diehard Astro fan, and '86 was, of course, the season the Mets beat the Astros in 6 games, where we blew 3 leads in the 9th inning, one after the other. So we won't bring that up.
There was something special about that Mets team, but sadly for us Mets fans, it's been largely downhill since then.
It certainly has, hasn't it? Well, fabulous to have you on, and we just had on Delegate Greason earlier from Loudoun County. Our theme today, education. One of the key pieces of legislation that you've been advocating for some time is a way for Virginia to establish a charter school authority that can promote more charter school opportunities, and obviously that would provide students and their parents with additional choices, right?
Yeah, what our caucus really focused on this year is empowering our localities, empowering our schools and families to really educate their kids to meet the needs locally of their kids. I've got 3 little kids in or starting in the public schools. My wife's a former teacher. My brother's an assistant principal in one of our local high schools. My mom's a teacher. So this stuff's sort of fundamental to us.
Right.
And whether it's school choice or bringing more tools to localities or calendar flexibility, SOL flexibility, we're fighting for all these things because it's just time for us to say that we can't let another generation of kids go in some of these school systems where we're failing them. Where we're doing well, we need to replicate that elsewhere. We need to reward our teachers for the great work they're doing. And I'm really excited that this is such an integral part of our agenda this year.
You know what, Delegate Habeeb, one of the candidates for Lieutenant Governor, businessman and entrepreneur from Northern Virginia, Pete Snyder, has called for basically a constitutional amendment in Virginia to accomplish exactly what you're trying to do legislatively. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different approaches to this. One of the bills that I have is what's being called the Opportunity Educational Institution, which would allow the state, when there are certain failing schools, allow the state to bring, again, new resources, new tools to those localities. There's charter school legislation and other things. I think everything needs to be on the table when it comes to education. It's simply inexcusable for us to not educate our kids to the best of our capability. So, again, whether it's charter schools, school choice, or just reinforcing what we're already doing at the public school level. Again, my kids will go to public schools. My family has a long history of working in and being educated in the public schools. I love our public school system in Virginia, especially in the Roanoke and New River Valleys that I represent. It's not the best system for everybody, though. So we need to empower families to be able to educate their kids the way they see fit.
What do you think of the Speaker of the House's concept to give each school district authority and jurisdiction over their own school calendar in Virginia?
Yeah, that's a bill that I've carried since I got here. We got it out of the House last year. It failed in the Senate. I'm hoping we can make some progress there. Again, I'm one of those people who doesn't think Richmond always knows best. I think every locality's students are different, their schools are different, their economy is different, their way of life is different. And for us to be setting calendars in Richmond because, one part of the state thinks it's best for them, to me just goes against my governing philosophy. My governing philosophy is let the folks on the ground educate their kids the way they see fit. It's a big deal in the Roanoke Valley, especially in Roanoke City, which is more of an urban jurisdiction and has some different issues to deal with than others. And the fact that they're beholden to weather patterns to determine when they start their calendar just doesn't make any sense to me.
And Delegate Habeeb, actually something you just said goes to how the state handles transportation issues as well. Since the majority of the transportation issues are centered on the south side and here in Northern Virginia, I would wonder, even knowing that in the Roanoke-Lynchburg area you are facing some bridge expansion and upgrades to the infrastructure there. How would you approach the transportation issue from a local perspective, given Governor McDonald's idea of dropping the gas tax, expanding the sales tax, and maybe tapping into the general fund?
Sure, and that's a great question, because transportation and transportation concerns mean different things to people in different regions. The media tends to think transportation means congestion in Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia. Well, in our area, that's not what transportation means. It may be bridge issues. It may be access to passenger rail, which some folks are talking about, which is actually part of the governor's plan. There would be some money for passenger rail from Lynchburg to Roanoke. So transportation means different things to a lot of people. Now, candidly, in my area, it's not the first topic of conversation that people bring up. What people need to understand is that our statewide economy is impacted dramatically by transportation issues elsewhere. So I'm very happy that we're having sort of a big conversation, and I'm happy that there's more than one plan out there. I'm looking forward to a much broader conversation. Delegate Albo has a plan. Delegate Hugo has a plan. Senator Watkins has a plan. The governor has a plan. And what I'm excited about is, for the first time, we're actually putting everything on the table, trying to address our needs and trying to take a statewide approach. Now, there are some smaller pockets like Hampton Roads or Northern Virginia where the issues may be so critical that they want to take a truly local approach with a taxing referendum or something to that effect. But I'm glad we're having the conversation about transportation, because it does matter, and I'm afraid if we don't do it this year, we're not going to get anything done.
Well, I would ask you, since it is so imperative that we get something done, what funding methodology would you be in favor of?
There are a lot of approaches that I think that I could back. I do think there is room for dynamic growth in an otherwise revenue-neutral plan. I do think transportation is a core function of government. So if that means money from the sales tax, I think ultimately it's a core function. If we don't have a strong, vibrant economy, we're not going to be able to fund education and other things, and transportation largely drives our economy. So I am fine with that. Ultimately, I think we need to be revenue neutral from a static standpoint. We need to not be increasing the tax burden on our citizens, but where we can encourage growth and grow dynamically through economic growth, which is, again, one of the reasons why the sales tax conversation makes so much sense, because the sales tax is so closely tied to economic growth. I'm glad we're having the conversation. I expect that before all is said and done, there will be some significant tweaks to the governor's plan and maybe others. And one thing everyone's going to have to understand is, when you talk about an issue this big, nobody's going to love all of it. The question is, can we put a plan forward that is right for the citizens, that, taking everyone's pros and cons into account, we can advance? I think this is the year to do it, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll get something done.
It has to be, because if we don't solve the transportation crisis, Delegate Habeeb, in this state, then we're not going to get job growth. Companies aren't going to come in the area if they can't get their employees from point A to point B. Employees aren't going to come in because it degrades your quality of life. My question that I can't understand is, as a conservative, if we all understand that we have to improve transportation and we know that we have to pay for it, what is the matter with saying, well, we're going to have to increase taxes? For instance, you just said, well, let's do a sales tax, but let's make it tax neutral. Well, in reality, if you get more people in and the economy expands and you're buying more goods and services, then the tax base goes up. So in effect, that's a tax increase. But if it's to pay for something we absolutely need to survive, why is that a bad thing?
Sure. Well, there's a difference between increasing revenue and increasing taxes on individuals. When we bring more people into our economic system, we increase revenue without increasing taxes on individuals. Again, that's where the dynamic growth concept comes in. When the economy grows broadly, when more people are brought into our economy, when new businesses are brought in, we increase revenue, we can help fund transportation, but we do so without increasing taxes on the individuals who are the hardworking families back home who have to balance their budgets. Thankfully, we're not in the same economic scenario as a lot of states, but nonetheless, we have over 5% of our folks are unemployed, even higher than that when you add in people who have removed themselves from the workforce. So I know too many people living paycheck to paycheck that I can't support a plan today that puts more taxes directly on them today. But what I can support is a plan that through economic growth brings more people into our economy, increases revenue dynamically. I think we can do it. I think the governor's plan is a starting point in the conversation, and I think we're going to get something done this year.
Okay, Delegate Habeeb, let's go to politics for a minute. Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling might run as an independent for governor. We think he will. That's our prediction, just based on our analysis. If he indeed does run for governor as an independent, can, in your judgment, the Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, can he still win, or would a Bolling candidacy make it that much tougher on him?
Sure. Let me be clear about a few things. Number one, I 100% support Attorney General Cuccinelli. He will be our next governor. Certainly, Lieutenant Governor Bolling running complicates things, but America has a long history of third-party candidates running. Very rarely do they ultimately impact the outcome of an election. The reality is, at the end of the day, this is going to be a two-person race. I would hope that Bill Bolling doesn't take the Russ Potts route, but if he does, he does, and we'll just deal with that. I look forward to working hard to get Ken Cuccinelli elected. I look forward to serving with him when he's governor. And I hope, ultimately, that Bill Bolling will decide that he does, in fact, have a future within the Republican Party and a voice within the party. And instead of burning all those bridges for what is ultimately a futile effort, I hope that he will ultimately not run. If he does, we'll still win. It'll just be a different approach.
There are 7 candidates running for lieutenant governor on the Republican side, 2 running for the nomination for Attorney General. Do you plan on making any endorsements?
Yeah, I don't. I got involved in politics at the local grassroots level. I was the Salem Republican Committee chair. And frankly, I was never a big fan of elected officials trying to dictate to the grassroots folks who they should support. Whenever people ask me, I give my opinions of the various folks. I'm happy to provide them information. I'm really happy with the field we have. Ultimately, we're going to have a great ticket. And I think we should leave it up to the grassroots folks to make those decisions. And the less politicians weighing in, as far as I'm concerned, the better.
Okay, we want to thank you for your time, Delegate Greg Habeeb. He's from the 8th District of Virginia, representing parts of Roanoke and the city of Salem. And he's a Republican first elected in 2011 in a special election. Delegate Habeeb, thanks for being on with us today, especially in our inaugural day of being on WBRG AM 1050 and 104.5 FM, the newest affiliate to the John Fredericks Radio Show Network. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.